this morning. Here, Rashi cites the Chazal that the term for tefillah is VaEschanan. And Rashi explains that Eschanan is when a tzaddik prays to Hashem, he never prays on behalf of his own merit or value, but rather everything's gratis. And the words, even though tzaddikim, they could ascribe their worthiness to their good deeds, to the Masim Tovim, they never ask Hashem, he should do for them based on their worthiness. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu used the term VaEschanan. It's only due to your graciousness I'm asking to be allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael. And he says, where did he see this? Because at Sinai, after the Chet Egel, Hashem had said, I will be gracious to the one that I would be gracious to. That had to do with the 13 attributes of mercy. Okay? Therefore, because Hashem had informed Moshe, I would gracious to when I'm gracious. Therefore, when he prayed, he did not, despite his value, that if not for Moshe, the Torah wouldn't have been given to Klal Yisrael. Moshe was that special person. He was the equivalent of the Jewish people. He did so much. He brought the Kiddush Hashem to the world. Despite all his level of accomplishment, he understood you cannot attribute it to yourself. It's purely gratis. And that's the way you have to pray. So we explained it. Could you imagine? We say, we always fall short of where we should be at. But Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't fall short. So maybe he, in terms of what he brought to the world, and we said he actually, he's the most faithful servant. He was able to prophesy in the wake state. That would be a confirmation of his worthiness. No, even Moshe Rabbeinu, as worthy as he was, nevertheless, it was gratis because despite this, he only had that capacity because he was endowed with that. Okay? We find out by Yaakov Avinu, he returns after spending 36 years away from his home, and problems begin. Rachel passes away. Dean is raped, and he had to confront Esau. He didn't know if he would survive it or not. So Rashi over there explains, Bikesh Yaakov Leisha B'Shalva. Yaakov wanted to have a little peace, a respite of all the tzoros that he went through, and explains what all the difference, the problems he had. Esau, Rachel passing away, who was his soulmate, and Dinah being raped, he wanted a respite from all the tzoros. Therefore, it's comforts of Yosef. That's what precipitated all the strife between Yosef and his brothers. So Rashi over there says that tzaddikim, not only did they want to have a share in the world to come, they want to have it peaceful in this world. Therefore, that activated this prosecution, and therefore, he suffered. He had this contentious situation between Yosef and his brothers. What it says over there is that the same thing over here. He wanted a respite. That's what I was thinking about. Is this VaEschanan? I deserve a respite. Is that what he was saying? And Yaakov didn't understand what Moshe understood. So the first thing came to mind was Moshe experienced the Chet Egel, and Hashem communicated with him and told him, that I will be gracious to the one I'm gracious to. From there, Moshe understood that as special as you are, you have no right to attribute anything to your accomplishments. So Moshe understood that. Therefore, Moshe is VaEschanan. Therefore, the terminology used was only it should be gratis, duty great. But Yaakov, he wasn't informed on this one. And because he wasn't informed on that, therefore, he felt he had a right. He suffered enough. He wanted to have a respite. And therefore, because he felt he had the right, Hashem says, no, it's not enough what's waiting for you in the world to come. You want even a respite in this world. Therefore, that activated this contentious situation with Yosef and his brothers. We find that Yosef was separated from his father for 22 years. Why? Because since when he left his home, his mother said, I want you to go for Yom HaChodim, only a short stay, and he overstayed the time you're supposed to be away. So he denied his parents 22 years of kibbud avim, of honoring his parents. Yosef, being the most special son of Yaakov, as you denied your parents kibbud avim for 22 years, you'll be denied that, believing that your son is no longer alive. And only after 22 years, that's when they were reunited, Yaakov and Yosef. I mean, said there was what? I mean, there was culpability there. Yaakov understood, right, that even though he justified it the way we explained, that because we asked the question, Eliphaz had taken all the wealth from Yaakov. He pursued Yaakov. Esau had sent him to kill Yaakov. And Yaakov had a choice, either to kill Eliphaz or to forfeit his wealth, because the only reason why Eliezer was able to come back very quickly when he negotiated the hand of Rivka was because he had all the wealth that Avram had sent. But going just with, as he says, he only crossed the Yarden with his walking stick and the shirt on his back. He understood it's going to be a long haul. He's going to be there for a long time. So if that's the case, why is there a claim against him? Right? We asked the question. He had no choice. The answer, he had a choice. The choice was he could have killed Eliphaz. He could have killed Eliphaz. How do we know he had the ability to kill Eliphaz? Maybe Eliphaz was stronger than he was. So we explained then, the Torah tells us when he came to the community of Lavan, there was a boulder on the well, and there were a number of shepherds, and they couldn't remove the boulder. But when he saw that Rachel was coming with the flocks of her father, it says, you just pluck the boulder off the well, and Rashi says, as one takes a covering off a bottle, like a bottle cap, just pulled it off. So the Torah tells us, is revealing to us how powerful Yaakov was. So we ask the question, why is it important for us to know how strong Yaakov was? I mean, he's not entering it into a contest. But the Torah makes it a point, wants us to know how powerful Yaakov was. So we had explained then that why is the Torah telling us this? Because factually speaking, for us to understand why he had liability. Because Yaakov, factually, when Eliphaz came to take his wealth, Yaakov could have killed Eliphaz. So why didn't he kill Eliphaz if he had the ability to kill him? So now we could talk about how there's a level of liability here. If you would have killed Eliphaz, you would have had the money, the wealth, you could have negotiated the hand of whoever is meant to be your wife. Because he came penniless, which was your choice, now you're stuck there for all the years. So as a result, why couldn't you fulfill the dictate of your mother? Because you chose not to. So we explained, why did Yaakov make this cheshbon? So we explained that Yaakov understood that if he kills Eliphaz, although we'll get back sooner, factually, a man who kills, when we showed from the Gemara, even if you're justified to kill, then you're obligated to kill. When you kill, you're no longer that same person. So Yaakov felt by killing Eliphaz, his dimension, his level of spirituality would be diminished, and his capacity to be able to father Jewish people is not going to be on the same level. As a result of that, the Shvatim, who are the Shiftei Kod, that capacity and spirituality is dependent on who he is when he fathers those children. Therefore, he chose, it's worthwhile for me to pay the price, whatever the price is for not fulfilling the dictate of honoring my parents, then what? Then killing Eliphaz. Whatever the price is to pay. He paid a price. 22 years that he was separated from Yosef. That was the measure for measure. That's how we explained it. But the fact is, when you're bound, you can't make, as Aaron made a cheshbon. Aaron, that he participated in gathering the gold, he lost 2 sons. Because again, he shouldn't have done it. Well, he said, if I would have been killed, I was a Kohen and a Navi, the Jewish people would have never been forgiven. That's not your issue. You have no right to participate. So there's a level of liability. Yaakov had liability. You have no right. If Hashem says you have an obligation to honor your parents, you must come back. So if you must come back, but if that's the case, it's only if I kill Eliphaz, I'll be compromised, spiritually speaking. That's not your issue. You're supposed to do what you're supposed to do. As though that was the basis for the liability to Yaakov. That was it. And he's willing, so if that's the case, why Bikesh Leish B'Shalvo? He understood he had a debt to pay. He wants a respite. What do you mean you want a respite? But factually, you haven't finished paying your debt yet. If you haven't finished paying your debt, you have paid debt. So what was even the consideration? Bikesh le b'shalva, and Hashem didn't say, because you'd have to be atoned. He didn't say that. Isn't it enough for the tzaddikim? They have the share waiting in the world to come. Isn't that enough? And they even want a respite in this world. It was the position he had taken on, that I've already paid my dues. It's not because he had yet a debt to pay yet. The debt hadn't been finished being paid. Separate discussion. But faction Yaakov himself, he himself didn't hear V'chanosei Sherochu. Didn't hear it yet. But nevertheless, based on who he was, he should have understood it. And because that, he should have understood it. But again, it's not a claim against him. In terms of that, it's because it's not enough tzaddikim, they have a share in the world to come. They even want to have a respite in this world. So somehow we have to reconcile the two. Why did Yaakov know himself? They had this claim against him. Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos that if one should do something l'shem shemayim, you should do it for the sake of Hashem. Why? When you do something for the sake of Hashem, although you personally don't have a sufficient amount of merit to achieve what you want to achieve, it's on behalf of the tzibur. We're talking about something on behalf of the tzibur. You need their merit to succeed. Hashem allows you to use their merit to succeed. And even after you succeed, you're fully deserving, despite that you have to use their merit. You couldn't have succeeded without their merit. But since you approached it l'shem shamayim, for the sake of Hashem, Hashem gives you, compensates you fully as if it was only your merit. That's the mission of Pirkei Avos. That's if you do something l'shem shamayim. So he did l'shem shamayim. That was your choice. But without Hashem transferring the merit of the tzibur, of the community, into this person's account, he couldn't have succeeded no matter what he meant. But because you meant l'shem shamayim, Hashem gives you this bonus. He adds this merit to your account to be able to, but yet when you're going to be rewarded, it's as if it was all your merit. Because you merited the merit to take their merit, because you did l'shem shamayim. That's the mission of Pirkei Avos. So there are times where the reason why you succeed in life has nothing to do with you. L'shem shamayim, so you did l'shem shamayim. There's a word from the Chafetz Chaim, he writes, he says that reward, when Hashem rewards us, one of the 13 tenets of Jewish belief is Hashem schar v'onesh, reward and punishment. So when you choose to do the right thing, you're deserving of to be rewarded, to be compensated, more than compensated. And yet, Chazal, he quotes a pasuk, that the pasuk says that reward is called chesed. So yes, how could it be chesed? I mean, if you chose and you had to make that choice and you exercise that free choice, despite that you've gone in the other direction, that's what you're deserving. So why is it chesed? So he explains it with an allegory. Beautiful mashal he gives. This person who wanted to be apprenticed as a diamond cutter. And the master said, I'll train you for 4 years. And when I train you, I will provide room and board. I'll provide you with the rough that you have to practice on. You work on with my equipment. And after 4 years, you should be a master, a semi-master yourself. However, after 4 years, the diamonds, the rough that I give you to cut, you're going to only receive 50% that I pay other diamond cutters. If I give the rough to others, they get double what you're going to get per carat. But you're only getting 50%. Okay, he agreed. After 4 years, he's already achieved what he was meant to achieve. His expertise surpasses even the master. Definitely there are people out there in the industry who cut diamonds. And the master gives him many dimes to cut, and he's paying 50%, he's paying everyone else, and the quality of the work of others is not his quality. And this has gone on for 2 years. And the agreement was for the next 5 years, he has to take the fee is 50%. And after a while, he can't tolerate it any longer. Here, their work doesn't match his work. And here he's getting 50% less. And he finally he perks up and he says to his boss, this is not fair. Not fair. He says, why isn't it fair? He says, look, my work surpasses theirs and this and that, and I get 50% of what you're giving them. He says, you don't understand. These people, I never trained them. I never clothed them. I never fed them. They work with their own equipment. They never worked with my equipment. You, the training, the period, I covered you from A to Z. And even now, when you cut it on my equipment. So that's the reason why I'm giving you 50%. I don't contribute anything to their accomplishment. Therefore, they deserve twice as much. Therefore, you get 50% less than what they get. So the Chofetz Chaim says, if Hashem would not endow us with intelligence, would not give us health, would not give us functionability, whatever it is, if everything's said and done, our only contribution is, what? Bechira chavshis, choice. Every other aspect of our being, it's like I always give the example, a person's on a boat, and there's very strong current, and there's a rudder on the boat. And all you have to do is just turn the rudder in terms of directing the boat in what direction you're going. That's it. But everything else is just the setting, the boat, the rudder, the current, the water, that directs everything else. All you have to do is make the slight movement and you go in that right direction. That's what Bechir is. But in terms of the level of accomplishment, unless Hashem contributes 99% of whatever's going on, you go nowhere. And despite that, he says you're deserving of full reward. Although he contributes everything. It's like the master with the apprentice. You deserve a pittance of what he gives you, yet he says, no, you get it all. Because since you chose to use this to do my will, therefore reward is chesed. That's how the Chofetz Chaim explains it. As a result of this, it's not enough for the tzaddikim what they receive in the world to come. What they receive in the world to come borders on the infinite. This is eternity. And especially Yaakov, what he was, what he achieved. The highest level, he was the most special of the patriarchs. So he utilized his choice to achieve what he achieved. He merited to have the 12 tribes, which is the basis for existence. What kind of privilege? Hashem gave him that capacity to do that. So in his mind, he already paid. He accomplished enough that somehow should quelch any prosecution on him. Hashem says it's not enough what you're going to receive in the world to come. What you receive there surpasses anything anybody can imagine. This is beyond chesed. And you want to have respite. As a result of that, that's the reason why this activated this contentious situation with Yosef and his brothers. So it's very similar to VaEschanan. Tzaddikim, although they could attribute it to their good deeds, but factually speaking, knowing that you're a debtor beyond debt, because you owe it to Hashem, because whatever you accomplish, only because He contributed to your setting and your situation, that's why you were able to achieve what you achieved. If everything we ask is gratis, it's Hashem's graciousness. Verse says, the Navi says that ayin lo roso, no human eye, including the prophet, ayin lo roso, the eye has never seen, zulose elkim. The only one who knows what the world becomes all about is only Hashem himself. Until you're there, you don't know. It's not possible to know what it is. You could prophesize from today forever. You can be Moshe Rabbeinu. The only one who knows what the world to come is only Hashem. So, abstract-wise, conceptually speaking, we know it's eternal, it's this, it's that. The Gemara describes what it is, but it's not possible to know. If the mission tells in Pirkei Avos that Koras Ruach of the world to come, just a whiff of the world to come, is more than if you encapsulate every moment of pleasure, from the beginning of existence till the end of existence, into one nanosecond, it does not come to a whiff of the world to come. Could we even relate to what that is? We have no idea. It's beyond our capacity even to relate to what that is in the physical sense. And the spiritual even surpasses that. Only God knows. So conceptually say there's nothing there. Equivalent of that, it's this, it's that, whatever it is, but there's no way to know.
But and so so Moshe and Yaakov and others are supposed to have the wisdom to understand that.
Well, evidently, you were not going to be held accountable. Well, Moshe knew it because Hashem shared it with him. After this Chet Egel, Chanose Sherocho, I'll be gracious to the one I'm gracious. That opened Moshe's eyes. That's how. Therefore, when he asks VaEschanan, he's supplicating Hashem with the only due to Hashem's graciousness. Hashem never shared that with Yaakov. But despite that, Yaakov evidently, since he felt he suffered enough, he wanted tranquility. Not that he wanted rule, he wanted tranquility. So Hashem says, you mean it's not enough? What, I'm giving you the world to come? Comparatively speaking, I always give an example. They once had a picture of a woman, an old lady. She had about 800 grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. And they took a picture, and she's sitting among her children and all her descendants, and she's smiling. This old lady who's writhing with arthritis, with every ache and pain that you can imagine. And she has nachas, she's beaming with pleasure. So he said, what about your lumbago? What about your arthritis? What about this? She says, when I see my grandchildren, it all means nothing. It means nothing. It's totally subsumes whatever that is, that's what it is. If you would focus on what the world to come is, nothing, it means nothing. All this means nothing. And we find that Yaakov fell into this trap, what Jay brought up to Chazal with Paro. Paro asked him, I've never seen a man as old as you are, although he was 130 years old. Yaakov says to Paro, my life has been very difficult. I had tremendous suffering. But my forefathers, their lives surpassed my life. So Hashem says to Yaakov, after all I've done for you, Yosef was returned. Dinah was returned. You survived the jaws of the lion, Lavan and Esav. And you complained to this pagan to tell him that you had a difficult life. So for every word that he said to Paro, he had a year deducted from his life. And therefore, rather than passing at the age of 180, like his father did, passed away at 147. Because every word that he said was deducted from his life. How do you complain? After all they've done from you, you see it in the negative, that you experienced something negative. It should have overshadowed to the point that you shouldn't have sensed anything. And how do you share this with this pagan? That's a famous Chazal, which is brought by the Dazahin of Alitosis, cites this. It's a beautiful word from the Chaim Shulevitz. If you count the words, so how many words should he say? If he had 147, he had 33 words, he said. If you count the words, it falls short of it. So he says, or Chaim Shulevitz, that when Paro saw him, he saw an aged person. Aged. So those words, if you add those words to the number, you have enough words. So he says, he explains, if Yaakov would have experienced all the tzoros and simultaneously seen what Hashem did for him, it wouldn't have worn him down. It's only because he saw it in the negative, that's why he prematurely aged. He shouldn't have aged. He only aged because the way he experienced it. But the claim against this, you shouldn't have experienced that way due to all that I did for you. That's how Rav Chaim Shmulevitz reconciles the Medrash with the number of words. You understand? If you see it, this is the story I told the Rebbe of Zusha. The Rebbe said, you go to Zusha, he'll teach you how to be happy with nothing. So when the person came to Rebbe of Zusha, he says, I came to you because the Rebbe says you have nothing. He said, no, I have everything. And he was beaming. The man had a rickety house. He was malnourished, everything. And the man's beaming that he has everything. He never felt he was ever lacking in anything. That's the claim against Yaakov, because it's not only what he said, it's what he looked like, due to the experience, what he experienced. Okay, ask a question. I want to respond.
Why didn't Yaakov see those 22 years that Yosef was missing as for the good? Why was he totally incapacitated spiritually for 22 years? He should have said, okay, this is all for the good. Hashem knows what he's doing. Let me,
Okay. Rashi cites Chazal that Yaakov had a Mesorah, had a Kabbalah, that if any one of his children pass away in his lifetime, he has no share in the world to come. That means it's a confirmation he's failed. It has nothing to do with it. A person goes to Gehenna forever. You celebrate you're going to Gehenna? God forbid. That means you failed. It's beyond, you can't recoup it. He was meant to be the patriarch that's meant to give the world its value, to address the objective of creation. He failed. He's gone forever. He's not saying Hashem's not dying emes. What he deserves to get. But where is he? He forfeited everything. That's what he was grieving over.
And so how is it possible to, with that understanding, hold him to account for not being?
No, that's something else. He's not held accountable there.
No, but we just talked about the agedness. Like,
no, that's something else.
You lose.
He didn't age because of that. He aged because that he had to deal with Esav all those years. He had to deal with Lavan all those years. His daughter's raped and she comes out alive. And they're able to, and his children were not killed. When they killed, they decimated Shem, that community. They could have been killed, Shimon and Levi. They came out unscathed. You should be singing God's praises, which he was, but still, it shouldn't have affected you the way that it affected you.
So just the understanding is that at least at the moment in time that he thought that Yosef had died, that wasn't what caused him to age, because I could just
correct. It was a combination of everything. Because Chazal doesn't say that because you believed you were a goner. That I rejoined Yosef and brought him back to you, if you would have been appreciative, all what happened prior wouldn't have worn you down the way it did. Either he would have regained his vibrancy, whatever it was, it did not. So Hashem said, you didn't internalize it sufficiently that you should not be affected negatively as you were affected. So that's a claim against you.
Rabbi, on a simple level.
Good.
Why did Hashem have to set up Moshe to hit the rock so he couldn't go into Eretz Yisrael? Why didn't Hashem just tell Moshe, listen, you can't go into Eretz Yisrael because this is what the Bnei Israel needs, and you can't go in. End of story. Moshe would have understood that clearly.
Good. Now, why did Moshe not go in? Because he struck the rock. But what was the feeling of striking the rock? You had the ability to achieve a Kiddush Hashem, and you failed. Moshe Rabbeinu had a failing. He failed. Even though Hashem gave him a challenge, he had the ability to succeed. He didn't have to hit the rock. But because Hashem knew he would hit the rock, that would be his choice. That's why he gave him that challenge. But what was the failing? The failing was Chil Hashem. That was the failing. He had the ability to sanctify my name by speaking to the rock. Because the takeaway for the Jewish people would have been, hear the rock, which is not for reward and punishment. When you speak to it, it does the will of God. You people, we have so much to gain and so much to lose. Definitely you should listen to the word of Hashem. That would have been the model for them to take away. So you had the ability, like the Shani, to sanctify me, my name, and you did not. So for denying the Jewish people that opportunity, you don't deserve to go in. But other than that, he deserved to go in. It's again, Hashem doesn't deny you something that you deserve. If he deserved to go in, so Hashem has to give him a setting that he does not deserve. But he thought that through tefillah, midas harachmim would somehow address that shortcoming. Right? That's tshuva. A person does tshuva. So if that's the case, maybe you should be able to go in. So you're asking what? He should tell him you can't go in because, but again, really you deserve to be forgiven. It's not the case. Because I'm not to be forgiven for the sake of the Jewish people. If you deserve something, Hashem doesn't deny you. Right? Does not deny you. The answer is a tzaddik at Moshe's level, he's willing, and Hashem did say, Hashem says, I don't want to hear about it anymore. He prayed endless tefillos with VaEschanan. Hashem says, you must stop. Why must you stop? So Rashi cites the Chazal later, the Medrash, because it seems to be that it doesn't reflect well on me. Here the subject is praying and the master is just closing the door in his face. Therefore, I want you to stop praying because you don't deserve to go in for whatever reason because of that, whatever the reason is. So Moshe Rabbeinu had to meet that challenge of to stop. That was a challenge for Moshe Rabbeinu to stop. And he was willing to stop. When he said stop, he stopped on the spot as much as he wanted to go in. That was part of his challenge. Was he felt, be going in, ultimately I'll be able to achieve so much more of Kiddush Hashem. Hashem says Kiddush Hashem is you keep quiet. That's the Kiddush Hashem. That despite you being denied the ultimate, you accept God's decree. We never know what is more, what's less. Only Hashem knows. And you accept it. And he accepted it. He remained silent.
Following Ernie's question, why didn't Hashem tell Moshe, if you go in